Have you ever looked at your bank account at the end of the month and thought, wow, I worked all month just to see this? You want to save more money. Maybe treat yourself occasionally without immediately feeling guilty. Or perhaps you want to build something that could eventually become much bigger. In other words, you want a side hustle. And please don't ask me what a side hustle is. If you clicked on this video, I'm assuming you already know and that you're hungry, not for food, for additional income. But when I first started looking for a side hustle, I had no secret strategy, no business mentor, and absolutely no guarantee that anyone would buy what I was selling. For the first 2 weeks, nobody did. Then I finally made one sale. 3 weeks in, I made my first sale on the platform that would eventually become my main focus. And after plenty of mistakes, experiments, and clothes taking over parts of my living space, I eventually had a month where I generated more than $2,000 from reselling. So today, I want to tell you how that actually happened, starting from zero. Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and in today's episode, I'm sharing my real experience of starting and operating a reselling side hustle. This is not a story about becoming a millionaire overnight. I'm not going to show you a huge number on a screen, point at it with a shocked face, and tell you that anyone can do it in 7 days. This is what the beginning actually looked like for me. When I decided that I wanted another source of income, I researched all kinds of side hustles, and there are thousands of ideas online. But choosing a side hustle really depends on who you are, what you're good at, and what you can realistically continue doing. For example, if you ask me to start a makeup business, there is a very good chance that everyone involved will regret that decision. But someone else might be amazing at it. At the time, I honestly wasn't even focused on finding my life's greatest passion. I simply wanted to supplement my income, so I was willing to explore different opportunities. At one point, I even considered becoming an art model at my school. Then I realized I might have to stay completely still for hours. I can barely sit normally through a movie. So, we continued searching. Eventually, I came across reselling, the idea of buying items at a lower price and selling them for more. I had always possessed an entrepreneurial mindset. I didn't hate taking risks, but I did hate taking risks without understanding what I was doing. The problem was that nobody around me was reselling. I had never personally seen someone build this type of business, so I had no real-life example proving that it could work for me. The only validation I had came from social media. I saw creators showing sales, packages, and impressive revenue numbers. That proved reselling was possible, but I felt that one important part was usually missing. The beginning. What happens when you have no experience? What should your first week look like? What happens if nobody buys anything? And how long does it actually take to understand what you're doing? I didn't have those answers, but I decided to begin anyway. I went to a thrift store and started sourcing clothes. Sourcing simply means finding inventory that you believe you can resell, and it would eventually become one of the most important parts of my business. But during that first trip, every clothing rack created a new concern in my head. Who is going to buy this? What if this never sells? Why did I think this was a good idea? I wanted to take a risk, but I wanted that risk to remain small, so I bought only a few items. Part of the reason I bought inventory instead of beginning with clothes from my closet was commitment. Once I spent my own money, those clothes weren't allowed to sit around forever. I had given myself a responsibility to learn how to sell them. To make the risk feel even safer, I chose some clothes that fit me and that I personally liked. My backup plan was very sophisticated. If they didn't sell, I would cry a little and then wear them myself. At the same time, another part of my brain was already imagining the opposite extreme. What if this works? What if I grow it? What if I quit my job and have money working for me? I hadn't sold a single shirt yet, and mentally I was already planning my early retirement. That confidence lasted until I got home and began doing the actual work. I cleaned the clothes, ironed them, took pictures, wrote the listings, and uploaded them to every platform I knew. Then I waited. Items sold after the first day, 0. After 1 week, still 0. It was definitely not the exciting beginning I had imagined. But when something doesn't work, I usually become even more determined to figure out why. Instead of quitting, I started changing things. I improved my photographs. I tested different angles. I rewrote my descriptions. I researched pricing and began paying more attention to how each platform worked. About 2 weeks after starting, I finally sold an item on Facebook Marketplace for $15. I had purchased it for $5.49 after tax. Was it enough profit to change my life? No. Was I staring at that $50 like I had just closed $1 million business deal? Absolutely. That first sale mattered because it proved that a stranger was willing to pay for something I had selected and listed. Even more importantly, it taught me that when one platform wasn't working, another one might. Every platform has different buyers, search behavior, and expectations. Then, around 3 weeks after starting, I made my first sale on Depop. That sale changed the direction of my side hustle because I eventually decided to concentrate most of my effort on Depop. But making a couple of sales didn't mean I suddenly knew which items to buy. So I began researching other resellers and tracking the products they were selling. That helped, but it also created a new problem. What sells for another reseller may not sell for you. They might have a different audience, better access to certain inventory, or years of experience recognizing valuable items. I copied some of the product ideas I saw online, but those products were often difficult to find, and even when I found them, they didn't always receive attention. That was when I began thinking more seriously about developing a niche. A niche is simply a more specific category of products, rather than trying to sell everything to everyone. I started thinking about the clothing I personally liked, the styles I understood, and what I would actually wear during different seasons. Then, I combined that personal knowledge with research into brands, trends, and market demand. Slowly, I began understanding what worked for me, not for the creator with a warehouse full of inventory. For me, I continued sourcing, photographing, listing, shipping, and communicating with customers. I made mistakes, fixed them, and gradually developed a system. Eventually, during the summer, I had my proudest month and generated more than $2,000 after sales and platform fees. I want to be very transparent about that number. It was not my final take-home profit. I still had to account for the cost of inventory and other business expenses. Today, while also working a full-time job, my reselling activity generally generates around $100 to $3,000 per month after sales and platform fees. But again, that is not the same as final profit. Some months are stronger than others, and the result depends on how much time I can dedicate to sourcing and listing. If I pushed harder, I believe I could grow it further. But time is currently my biggest limitation, and I would rather be honest about that than pretend this business operates completely by itself. Reselling is not passive income. The clothes do not photograph themselves. The packages do not walk to the post office, and customers definitely do not answer their own questions. But it has given me more than additional income. I learned how to research products, understand customers, take photographs, write listings, handle problems, manage inventory, and communicate professionally. Those are real business skills, and many of them can even be included on a resume. You can also test reselling without immediately purchasing inventory. I chose to spend a small amount because I wanted to create commitment for myself, but you could begin with unused clothing, electronics, or household items that you already own. All you really need to test your first listing is an item, a phone, and the willingness to learn. My first 2 weeks of zero sales did not mean reselling was impossible. It meant I didn't understand it yet. That is probably the biggest lesson I took from the experience. Your first result does not always show your potential. Sometimes it only shows your current level of knowledge. If you want, I can create another episode breaking down the real numbers, including inventory costs, pricing, platform fees, and how much can actually remain as profit. I can also explain sourcing, brands, styles, and the mistakes I wish I had avoided in the beginning. Let me know in the comments which part you want me to break down first. And if you have tried reselling, tell me how long it took you to make your first sale. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.